wealth tycoons, have you ever flown on Akasa Air, SpiceJet, or Air India Express? If so, this video is for you. The thing is, these companies use Boeing planes, the planes that you fly in. Yes, a different company manufactures these planes and provides them to these companies. However, there is a big problem with Boeing planes. But what is that? To understand that, let's go back a little. Two big Boeing plane crashes about 5 years ago that shocked everyone. One was an Indonesian passenger plane that crashed into the water not long after takeoff. The other one was an Ethiopian Airlines plane that went off the coast and hit the ground. It was only 5 months between these two disasters, which killed 346 people. No one can ignore such a huge number. Both planes were Boeing 737 MAX jets, which is very strange. At that time, a lot of people thought these crashes were sad but one-offs. You wouldn't believe that Boeing planes are still having scary technology problems that will make your skin crawl. For example, in January, one of their jet's door plugs broke off. Then, loose bolts were found in the device that held the door shut. A month later, a Boeing plane lost a tire in the middle of the trip. You heard that right, in the middle of the trip. Another thing that might make your heart race is the fact that fuel has been known to leak into the air. You are 30,000 feet in the air, and the pilot tells you that there is a fuel leak. Or even worse, you are landing and seeing that your plane's tire. Is it a bicycle or a giant plane? Well, such accidents have not happened for a long time now. However, 970 problems have been recorded at Boeing in the last 10 years. With one of the most famous airplane companies in history, that's almost 1,000 scary situations. Boeing is almost bankrupt. It used to be a sign of safety, innovation, and trust. People are getting more and more nervous about getting on Boeing planes, and the company's image has gone downhill. The funny thing is that Boeing was the best in the world for many years. Some people even said, "If it's not Boeing, I'm not going." That's how much trust the brand had gained. However, for 80 years, Boeing was the best at making airplane technology. They built dependable, advanced planes that people all over the world loved. For instance, the famous Boeing 747 changed the way people flew. But one huge mistake brought all that success crashing down, both physically and figuratively. Boeing has been the kind of company that always believed in the product-first idea, though their product does not reflect on their idea now, and that is so because Boeing had this vision on a much bigger scale. Boeing began in 1916 by making planes for the United States Navy during the First World War. The company's father, William Boeing, saw it as the future to fly. The company became very big over time and now makes both military and civilian planes. In the 1970s, Boeing was so far ahead of its rivals that it was funny. As an example, the Airbus 300 could fly 247 people over 4,600 miles, but the Boeing 747 could fly 460 people over an amazing 9,200 miles. You see, twice as far. Boeing was ahead because it was run by technical geeks who were crazy about making the best planes in the world. They didn't care if the company had to take huge risks or if income went down. Boeing took a risk in 1965 that could have put the company out of business. They chose to spend more than $1 billion, which is half of their yearly income, on making the Boeing 747, which was the first wide-body plane. It was not just a big plane, it was a big deal. The 747 made flying cheap for most people, which changed the aviation business for good. But in the plane business, spending billions on R&D doesn't always lead to success. It takes between 5 and 10 years to make a plane, and even then, the idea might not work out at all. That risk was still taken by Boeing. They put all of their money and time into making the best plane the world had ever seen. It might sound crazy to some of us, but the plan worked out well. People all over the world know the Boeing 747 as an icon. It was a risky move, but they were determined to make a great product and couldn't be stopped. $30 billion was spent by Boeing to make the 787 Dreamliner. Well, big dreams demand big investments. Even though Boeing spent a lot of money, they still had to sell 100 planes to make that money back. In simple words, 100 planes is a big fleet. As of December 2023, there were only 771 planes in the aircraft market. To cover their costs, Boeing had to sell an unexceptional number of planes to different companies existing worldwide. Can you picture the stress? But Boeing had always been willing to take big chances. It cost them more than half of their $2 billion in sales in 1965 to make the Boeing 747. It took 28 months and 4,500 experts, but it was well worth it. The 747 became famous because it was the biggest passenger plane in the world for 37 years, from 1970 to 2007. And here's what made Boeing so successful back then. The company was run by engineers. The people who were in charge were the same ones who designed the wings and owned the rights. They put safety and new ideas ahead of everything else, including making money and pleasing owners. Boeing could not be stopped because they were so focused on quality. Their stock price went through the roof by 4,400% from 1975 to 1995. Their income went from $3.9 billion to almost $20 billion. Boeing was the king of the air. It had a lot of orders and set new standards for flying. When it comes to businesses, you never know how long your success will stay. Boeing's success vanished after this huge rise. The trouble began in 1996. One of the most important airlines at the time was McDonnell Douglas. The other two were Boeing and Airbus. Boeing had the most market share, with 53%. Airbus came in second with 18%, and McDonnell Douglas came in third with 19%. Boeing chose to pay $13 billion to buy McDonnell Douglas to get a bigger share of the market. That sounds like a good move, right? Not right. This is where things get messy. A man named Harry was the CEO of McDonnell Douglas. He handled the deal so well that he became president and COO of the new company and even joined Boeing's board. Yes, the smaller fish did start to guide the bigger fish. The McDonnell Douglas team started to change how Boeing did business. They split up Boeing's close-knit teams and sent work to places like Japan, Malaysia, Italy, and more. For example, Japanese companies like Mitsubishi and Kawasaki were given the job of making 35% of the structure of the 787 Dreamliner. Other parts were done by Italian companies, and Malaysia also got a piece of the action. You might ask, why all this hiring? The answer is simple: dealing with business people. Japan Airlines and All Nippon Airways gave Boeing a lot of work to do, so Boeing hired Japanese companies to do it. It's a win-win situation. You save money, make friends, and get new buyers. If you are enjoying this video so far, you can appreciate our efforts by giving this video a like. It will be a kind reward for all the efforts we put in to make this video. Coming back to the topic, Boeing used this idea in a big way. They chose to hire someone else to do an amazing 70% of the planning, engineering, and building of their planes. That's the same as giving almost the whole job to more than 50 partners around the world. At first glance, it seemed like a great way to run a business. But was it? It turns out it wasn't as easy as it looked. To save money, Boeing, the big airplane company, came up with the great idea to hire other people to do a lot of their work. But guess what? It got worse instead of better, making things more difficult. There were a lot of problems, and the prices of building the 787 Dreamliner went through the roof. The budget that was supposed to be between $8 and $20 billion grew to $32 billion. Yes, they lost an extra $12 billion because of a bad plan to outsource. That hurts, and if that wasn't bad enough, Boeing fired more than 50,000 workers to save money from 1999 to 2003. After some time, they cut another 12,000 jobs. There was a strike, unions fought back to protect jobs, and things kept getting worse. This is where things really went out of hand. Boeing didn't want to work on making better planes. Instead, they thought, let's make our stock price look good. From 1998 to 2018, they bought back all of their own shares for $61 billion. Why? So buyers will think their stock is worth more. It works like this. Let's say you make $100 and have 100 shares. Each share is worth $1. Those 50 shares that you buy back, on the other hand, are now worth $2 each. Right? Magic? That kind of stuff is great for investors. The trouble is that they didn't work on their planes or new ideas while they were making their stock look good. Plus, they moved their offices 2,000 miles away from the team that works on commercial airplanes, which made it much harder to work together and ensure the quality of their work. Engineers and managers weren't even on the same page, let alone in the same zip code. At the same time, Airbus, their rival, was killing it. Even American Airlines, which had always bought Boeing planes, switched to Airbus in 2011 because their planes were better. Boeing had to pay attention to this. Boeing tried to save money instead of spending a lot of time and money making a brand new cool plane like they used to. Rather than making a whole new plane, which would have cost $20 billion, they took their old 737 design and made some changes to it. They then called it the 737 MAX. Smart? Not really. Before, Boeing was the shining star of the airline world, but they made a terrible choice that ended up being very bad. Sometimes it takes 5 to 9 years for new planes to get safety certification, but Boeing was so eager to beat Airbus that they thought, hey, let's hack the process. They used the old 737's design and just made the engines bigger. They thought that since the original 737 had already been approved, the 737 MAX would also go through without any problems. And it did, but not quite. They put in place a system known as MCS, which stands for Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. This method was meant to help keep planes safe by bringing the nose down automatically if it rose too high. It seems like a good idea, right? But it turned out to be a nightmare. In 2 terrible crashes, the MCS kicked in right after takeoff and kept pushing the nose of the plane down. In one case, 26 times in 10 minutes, the nose was pushed down. The pilots worked very hard to get it back up, but they lost control and the planes fell. It breaks my heart to think about how this turned out. The shocking part is that the pilots didn't know they could have turned off the device. Why? Since Boeing didn't tell them. The company didn't train the pilots or put the system in the plane's instructions because they didn't think it was a major change. Do you really believe that? There was a switch that could have saved lives, but the pilots didn't know it was there. You have to wonder what the hell they were thinking when they made that choice. These crashes caused a huge probe into Boeing, and what they found was even worse. Boeing put money ahead of safety because they wanted to make more money and show their shareholders. They skipped important details, cut costs, and made choices that had terrible results. As a result, their image was ruined, their stock price dropped by 49% in 5 years, and in the last 10 years, they have been involved in an unbelievable 970 incidents around the world. A company that used to be a sign of reliability and excellence turned into a sign of failure. There are some hard but important lessons to learn from this sad story. First, if you are in business, don't let making money make you forget how important quality is. The best businesses focus on making great goods, and the money comes in on its own. Second, an organization's culture is very important. If management and workers don't agree, bad things are about to happen. Boeing isn't the only company with this problem. Apple and Starbucks have also seen cracks show up. Last but not least, there is a thin line between cutting costs and giving up principles. It can be smart to cut costs, but if you do that at the price of quality, you will fail. Boeing found this out the hard way, and their story shows what happens when people are greedy and only think about the short term. What is your view about what happened to Boeing? How they could have done things better? Do share your views in the comment section below. If you want us to cover any such business story that you would like to see, mention that in the comment section too, and we will make it for you. Moreover, we have a lot of business stories already covered on our channel. You can give them a view. In the end, if you enjoyed watching the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you soon in another video.